land here in Oneonta in this area.
1976,
This
we
is-
have
yep.
Moynihan resigning from the Senate. No, is that right?
UN ambassador.
UN ambassador.
Yep.
UN ambassador. February of
And
1976.
was
UN
just toying.
ambassador. Yeah, I remember
Toying
him.
with the idea.
Yeah.
And he had a farm home here in
Yeah,
Pinder's Corners.
Pinder's Corners, yeah.
in that area. And
He was a familiar sight around here in those days.
yeah, he had a vacation home here.
Yeah, he
in,
did.
The town of Davenport, as they called it.
Yeah, that's for sure. So he says goodbye to the UN, and everybody's pulling on him to stay in politics.
Probably going to teach at Harvard.
Yeah.
He had that in mind. But as we all know, of course, the pull got stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And he did actually run in the fall of 1976.
Excellent.
So
We're talking
kind of got started.
Let me give you your little introduction here. We're talking with Mark Simonson for those that are tuning in. Mark is the City of Oneonta historian, of course. He stops by once a month, throws on the switch on the Wayback Machine. We're going to February of 1976 today, our bicentennial year. We kick it off with Moynihan resigning from the UN. And, of course, he had a lot of good years left ahead of him. That's for
sure did.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, nice little spot out in Pinder's Corner.
There's 2000.
Yeah, and of course Hillary had her had her big thing out there when she ran for the Senate. And, what else we got, Mark?
The listening tour,
that's right.
Further ahead. 1976, Cooperstown was realizing that hey, tourism is kind of here to stay in big time. So the chamber planned a new tourist center, kind of on the site where it is now on Chestnut Street,
Going into town.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a different building. And the economy of Cooperstown depends on the tourism industry, so they built a new center, a modular unit capable of being moved. And here's the prototype of it.
Yeah.
You see, it's just a kind of a modular building.
Oh, sure.
But, and they said capable of being moved because it was moved. I want to say in the early 1990s, they brought a house, the current tourism center, from right around where the golf course and the Farmers Museum is located.
Gotcha.
They actually moved the whole house down through the village streets and into that site on Chestnut Street.
They have a very nice little visitor center there. That's
is.
nice. They get a lot of traffic in the summertime there.
So they were saying we got to serve our tourists better because there are so many of them now.
Yeah, excellent.
So a little bit of controversy downtown. Of course, we had the urban renewal going on full steam ahead with that. They were knocking buildings down still in 1976. And there were some merchants who were against the urban renewal and this modernization. They wanted to restore and keep a lot of the old buildings.
Sure.
And so they brought a lawsuit against the Urban Renewal Agency, and the Urban Renewal Agency was up in arms. They're saying, oh, this is terrible. We can't have this because of the developers. They won't come to Oneonta and build in the city like they wanted to have
We won't
happen.
prosper. We'll die.
Yeah. And because of this bad word of mouth. But I think if we look 30 years later, I think 40 years later now, some of the old buildings are still pretty nice to have around.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that was the big plan in 1976 for downtown where the Clarion is today.
Yep.
Of course, that was Broad Street, as it was known. A lot of old buildings were torn down, 1974, 75, and then 76. And the big
the
plan,
wrecking ball was king back then.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're actually right there. The 1976, I think, was the awakening.
Yeah.
Starting to be the awakening of historic preservation. And why are we doing this?
You just wait. There's more to come here. There's more to come.
Yeah.
In a different front. But the big plan, of course, was to have a big shopping mall downtown with a couple of big department stores and a grocery store and a high-rise apartment nearby so people could walk to it. But it never panned out until the Clarion was built around 2000. It was just a big lot for so many years. Did not work out well. 1976, over in Oxford, there was talk of closing the Oxford Home, New York State Veterans Home, as an economy measure. It was the move to close it was made by then State Comptroller Arthur Levitt, who said if we move the veterans around to other locations, there will be some big savings. Also, in the meantime, backers of a different plan said that, hey, why don't we move some of the veterans here to the old tuberculosis hospital, Homer Folks, which had just closed within the last 2 or 3 years.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. The
facility's just there.
Yeah. It was just sitting idle. It was ready to go as a facility for that. It was considered, but of course, as you're aware, they did decide to rebuild a very nice veterans home in
It's
Oxford.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. However, I agree. I think that at a time before Job Corps came in and when that Homer Folks Hospital was in flux, what a perfect veterans home that would have made.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it was huge, first of all, so it could have been like the New York State Veterans Home. Really, it's a sprawling campus up there.
Sure.
But they decided to just refurbish I don't know whether they refurbished Oxford or they built a new one. I think they actually built a new one, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's great.
That was a scary time for the folks like Assemblyman Clarence Rapplier and Senate Majority Leader Warren Anderson of Binghamton. That was their district,
Sure.
so they were kind of concerned about that. That was a big employer. 1976, we had the Oneonta Yankees still in town, the New York Penn League affiliate, and they had a hot stove, so to speak. A winter kind of gathering of ball players, and the Yankee brass came up, and the ex-voice of the Yankees, Mel Allen, came to town.
He did.
And it was at the Oneonta Yankees banquet. And he was one of the speakers. Ron Bloomberg, he was, I think, the first designated hitter in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Yankee and came up to Oneonta. And, of course, it was a big gathering over at the Holiday Inn on the South Side.
Right?
And, yeah, some of the Yankee brass came up. And, of course, Sam Nader was instrumental in keeping that for so many years. And he got that started here in 1966, it was. So the banquet was 10 years old at that point. He always had a big banquet. And
Mel Allen must have, the people lined up to get a photograph with him probably. He was so well known.
Yeah. The good turnout. And there was an announcement for, let's see, the recipient of the Distinguished Service to Baseball Award here. And it was presented to none other than Harold Hunt. Many people will know Harold Hunt as a big-time coach at Oneonta High School from the 1920s right up until the mid-1960s.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know that name.
Yep.
Interesting.
Hal Hunt, his name was. And in making the announcement, Albert Nader, president of the Oneonta Athletic Corporation, said Hal Hunt was a strict fundamentalist and taught us how to play the game the right way. Sam would know because he was a player under Hal Hunt. Mm-hmm. And he said there were times during the Depression that Hal would take damaged baseballs home and sew them back up and manicure them so he could keep playing baseball.
Oh, what a great story.
So this award is for his continuous, tireless, and unselfish contribution to baseball.
And this is at the banquet that Mel Allen was at?
Yes.
Oh, what a night that must have been.
Yeah. I don't know if Mr. Hunt was there.
What a night that must have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Ron Bloomberg, a lot of names.
That's great.
Let's see. Yeah, so good gathering.
I'm sure there are a lot of people listening to us right now that remember that and were perhaps there to see that.
Played baseball under Coach Hal Hunt. Yeah, yeah. 1976, the Swart Wilcox Restoration Committee has asked the Common Council to allocate part of its 1976 community development funds to help get the restoration of Oneonta's oldest structure underway. Now, this was before the teachers took it over in the 1980s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this was 1976. A gentleman by the name of Walt Ashley. I know Walt well because he and I worked together at the Farmers Museum. We're interpreters.
Was the Swart Wilcox house always there, or
yes.
was it moved to the?
It was always there.
That's it.
Yep.
That's the original spot.
In 1974, 75, it was destined for the wrecking ball, and a movement began to save it. So Walt Ashley was the chairman of the Restoration Committee, and the city they were asked to donate $6,195 as seed money to help to get the Swart Wilcox restoration underway. They did a little bit. Now, being the bicentennial year as it was, they got it into shape so you could just kind of look inside because it had deteriorated since being vacated back around 1969 or 70. No one had lived there. And so Ashley said the project began when he received a $1,500 grant from the Preservation League of New York. Now, you were just talking. Here we go.
Yes.
Preservation.
Yeah.
It was coming into play.
It was. Mm-hmm. Good.
Right about that time. So the Sport Wilcox House, unlike urban renewal,
Good.
kind of
Was
started
saved.
the reverse a little bit.
That's great.
1976, thereabouts. Yeah. So,
But wait a second. I don't get the part of, when you said the teachers took over. What is that?
let's see. Helen Reese, Dawn Manette.
And these they were former teachers?
Yes,
Or teachers at the time?
Riverside and Greater Plains schools. They were very concerned about the way Swart Wilcox had been forgotten in the 1980s, 70s,
Nice.
and 80s. After the bicentennial, it kind of got just pushed aside and said, yeah, we still have this landmark here. What are we going to do with it? And there were no funds for it. So the four teachers, Deb Clough, and let's see, there were four of them. And they got together and they got it on the
Good for them.
the historic designation, the state and national sites. They got money for restoration, and of course, it's the landmark we know and love now. And they
That's
used
great.
it as part of their elementary school curriculum.
Oh, that's right. Of course, they're
Yeah.
right next door. Sure.
Yeah, and so that kind of got it started in '76. The teachers took over in the mid to late '80s when basically, the house had just put in mothballs and forgotten.
Yeah.
And-
Well, good for them. I had
Yeah.
no clue about that story.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah, so this was the start in 1976 to save it. Otherwise, it would have been. I think it was supposed to be a practice for firefighters. They were going to burn it.
Oh, no.
And just as a drill to for training. Thank goodness they saved it. A little bit of a D&H disaster in February of 1976. A dozen families in the Chaseville area, just west of Skenevis, were evacuated Monday after a 17-car derailment on the D&H opened a release valve on a 40-ton tank car filled with a toxic chemical. Now, this required 4 Skenevis firefighters and 2 troopers. They were treated at Fox Hospital and then released because of this toxic chemical. Thankfully, it didn't explode, and there wasn't problems like there were just almost 2 years to the day earlier. Many people still talk about this one in 1974.
That was the worst one certainly in our history.
Yes.
In a railroad town's history, that was bad.
Near Emmons, where the tanker exploded,
Yeah.
and nobody was killed, but 56 firefighters
Yeah.
were injured,
Yeah.
as I recall. Almost a replay, as it was. Put in
Chaseville.
the
I've
Daily
never
Star.
heard that before. I never heard of Chaseville before.
Yeah, just
Probably just a little Four Corners out there west of Skenevis, you said.
Yeah. Yeah. So close call. Close call. Here's another restoration renovation, and kind of close to your hometown. The Bainbridge Town Board Tuesday. This was February 13th of 1976. The Bainbridge Town Board agreed to let a committee of citizens go ahead with plans to renovate the theater on the second floor of the town hall, the old town hall theater.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a cute little spot. It really is, right on
Yep.
Main Street.
Yep. E. Reynolds Johnson, chairman of the committee. Jack Dool, resident director. Boy, he's
still
a
around.
household name
Yes,
in the
he is.
Tri-Town Theater.
He still is around,
I
yeah.
interviewed him a few years ago. They got that underway and got a little restoration started in 1976. It was known as the Avon Theater back in the day. The auditorium of the 66-year-old town hall at the time was used for motion pictures until the mid-50s. For the last several years, it's been used for the storage of props and scenery belonging to the Tri-Town Theater. So I've been to a couple of events down there. The Town Hall Opry. It's
a nice little spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. And they get a nice crowd. I
Yeah.
mean, the community, Bainbridge supports it. And,
Yeah.
and as people go from up here, too. But
They get their refreshments and the popcorn's cheap and,
yeah,
and
it's
an
neat.
old.
It's a very, very neat spot. I give them a lot of credit
It's-
for keeping that. Yeah.
It's a gem in that area.
I
1976.
did not know
I'm
that
sorry.
it was called the Avon Theater.
The Avon Theater.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Probably had some other names too before that, I would say. I'm sure they had vaudeville in there in the
Oh,
beginning.
yeah.
1908 it was built? Let me check here. Yeah, 66. Yeah, about 1910.
Cool little spot. Yeah.
1910. 1976, of course, we were a year after the Vietnam War ended, and there was news on February 13th that two Laotian families destined for this area will arrive at the Broome County Airport this afternoon. One family is Southeast Asian refugees, Mr. and Mrs. Tu Lee, and their sons, aged 1 and 3, will live on Chestnut Street here in Oneonta. They're sponsored by the Atonement Lutheran Church. A second Laotian family will locate in Stamford, where they're being sponsored by the First Presbyterian Church and the Audio Sears Corporation of Stamford. So we had some refugees moving to this area from Laos. That was 1976. Interesting. This may have affected the Imperios market. 1976. New York State's blue laws, which prohibit the sale of certain types of merchandise on Sundays, were ruled unconstitutional Friday by Justice Joseph P. Kaczynski of the state Supreme Court. In a 13-page decision, the judge described the law as a vestige of another age. February 21st of 1976, that was. How did that affect the Imperios market?
I'll tell you. My mom and dad's grocery store was right on Main Street, 11 Main Street, and right across the street, directly out our front door, was the town clock, where the fire department was, the town clock. And the blue law said you couldn't sell beer on Sunday before, was it noon? I think it must have been 1 o'clock, but before 1 o'clock. And so at 1 o'clock, I had to do, as a young man, I had to cover. We had a big beer cooler. I had to cover the beer with cloth. You couldn't see beer. You were not allowed to see beer. I had to cover the beer with a brown cloth, lock the doors, and wait until bong on the town clock. And of course, there was a clutch of men standing there holding onto their shopping carts,
looking at their watch. Come on.
I got one here. I said, no, we have to wait for the town clock to ring. And bong, I'd unlock it, pull the brown covers off the beer, and they would buy it. And that's how it changed, because the church would get out. Their 11 o'clock mass at Sydney's Sacred Heart Church was right out our back door. And so they would come in and do their shopping. They'd literally walk across the lot, come in and do their shopping, but then the men would have to hang around to buy the beer at 1, or they have to drop the moms off and come back. Now, boom, right from church, beer.
Yep. So 1976 was the turning point.
I tell you what, though, Mark, there was one day when the town clock wasn't working.
Oh, no!
And I had 15 people saying, it's 1 o'clock on my watch, Chuck, come on.
That was the blue laws were battled here in the 1974, 75. A lot of stores stayed open on Sundays, and they defied these laws. Like the James Way and Grants, and what was there? Big N down in the West End before it was Ames Department Store. They defied them, and they stayed open. Even Brzez's did that in the mid 1970s around Christmas time, Thanksgiving, the weekends like that. They stayed open and defied them. It was just, as he said, it's a vestige of another age.
Yeah, that's true. It was true.
Yeah, where the little shops couldn't sell certain things. So 1976, that was the big turning point. Let's see, we were talking about the war here a couple minutes ago. For years, it was the center of controversy. Angry war protesters demanded that it be closed down. This is February 21 of 76, but yesterday, local draft boards 42, 43, and 53 quietly closed the doors without ceremony or fanfare. The office was located on the second floor of the Oneonta Hotel, which is 189 Main Street, right where the Otsego County Chamber is today.
Is that all three of them were in there? Is that the way that worked?
I think they served Otsego, Shenango, and Delaware counties. 2 years ago, the office was formed, merging of the offices of Cooperstown, Delhi, and Norwich. So they had the different numbers, and they formed there. And
I'll bet a lot of young men in our listening area remember trudging up those stairs to the second floor of the Oneonta Hotel.
Because laws required 18-year-olds to register for the draft.
Yeah.
And the draft lottery, which once a major event, the lives of 18-year-olds will not be held for 1976 and probably not for years to come. So it was end of an era, and there was the old door on the second floor of the Oneonta Hotel.
Wow.
February of 1976. Another landmark. This is name we know here in the Oneonta area today, Chalet Furniture of Cobleskill has purchased the well-known Hotel Augustin on Cobleskill's Main Street. And it's expected to relocate the furniture sales operation to the old hotel.
Beautiful hotel.
I
beautiful.
sort of remember when it was a hotel,
Yeah.
vaguely.
Had a tap room downstairs, beautiful lobby upstairs. It was really a jewel on Main Street in Cobleskill. I'm
Being
sure
the
it's very-
hitchhiker that you were
we
to go to
stopped
Albany
there.
Business
God,
School, I'm
yes.
sure you
Oh,
did.
That was a way station, believe me.
Yeah, sure.
But I haven't been in there since. I don't even know if it still is Chalet's, but they had a fantastic building to work with.
Yeah. Okay. So that was interesting. Here we go. Homer Folks.
Yeah.
This was the same month, February 24th. Oneonta's Homer Folks facility is now one of 3 sites being considered for a job training center. Okay, it was being bandied around as the veterans home and a lot of things for...
I didn't realize Job Corps was that old. Wow, that's great.
It would house up to 300 people and provide 100 area jobs. It didn't open until September of 1980, so it took a while to get it refurbished and actually approved, but it was being studied in 1976.
More than 35 years old up there. I'll be darned.
Yeah. So, right, that was big time for that. Yeah. Let's see. 1976. A state study suggests 2 new fire stations should be built in Oneonta. Now, the old fire station is where the Otsego County office building is today, across from the community bank.
Yes, you can still kind of...
Yeah, the ambulance and the fire trucks were all in that little building.
Really?
And you can see where the garage doors were.
Yeah.
So if there was a fire, they'd come.
That's
roaring
right. You
out
can
of
see
there.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a sight that must have been on Main Street. My gosh.
Yeah, the noise, the clatter
Yeah,
when a
stopping
fire or something was
traffic.
going around. Yeah. So, this was urban renewal times. They were thinking, man, we could probably have a fire station at a better location where it's not so congested and dangerous. So at that time, 76, the commission suggested that one new station be built at the corner of Market and South Main Street behind the present Main Street station, and another placed on Chestnut Street between Pearl Street and Lewis Avenue, so far west end. Yeah. That would be, they could get to the fires quicker.
Sure.
They wouldn't have the congestion on
Wonder
Main
what
Street.
happened to that one.
Obviously got kind of...
Budget cuts.
Yeah. And they finally did come up to the one here at
Yeah.
the corner of Market and Main.
Yeah, and they can
I
get
think they opened that in 1981. So,
they can get everywhere quickly up there.
yep. As the public safety building, as it became to know. But
That's
They
right.
considered it as a couple of fire stations at that time. Here we go. Landmarks, restoration. John Miller, a high school math teacher who as a child played in Old Main, has bought the historic landmark at the foot of the Oneonta State campus. Miller bid $15,000 for the structure at a public auction on the steps of the building yesterday. He said he was the only bidder of 40 and didn't think anybody was going to put a bid on it, but just as they put the bid in, Miller came up with the bid of $15,000. And quoting from the Star, "Well, I'll be an SOB," explained startled Miller when he became evident. Miller was accompanied by his daughter, Valerie, who laughed, "Mommy's going to kill you." But
Wait
Mr.
a
Miller
minute.
went home.
He bought
Old Main.
Old Main.
Yep.
You're talking about where Bugby School is.
Yep. 1975, they sold it to a firm in Delhi, but they
For $15,000.
yeah, and they hope to make it into multiple family residences, but the group by the name of Stephen J. Builders couldn't come up with the rest of the money, so it went back on the auction.
Oh,
So,
okay, that's how that worked.
Mr. Miller, the most patient man in the world, I have to say, because he was a math teacher and I was one of his students. And when it came to math, yeah. Very patient man. I like Mr. Miller.
$15,000.
He bought it.
Mom's going to kill you.
Mommy's going to kill you. Wah, wah. Well, he didn't disclose his plans for the building, but it sort of became evident when he said he looked over the building. He estimated that there were between 1 and 2 million bricks in the structure, which he said could be sold if the building is demolished, which unfortunately it was a couple of years later. Unfortunately, they didn't save it, and that was again the time when the restoration was
slowly
getting
turning.
started.
Slowly
Had
turning.
it been a few years later, probably would
Oh.
have made out all right.
I wonder if he sold the bricks.
I think he did.
I wonder what 2 million bricks cost.
Yeah,
$15,000.
sold it in portions. I guess I don't know.
What do you got for entertainment, Mark? Let's head for the entertainment world here. All right.
We're running late.
We always like to.
Great,
Yeah,
saying.
that's okay.
Let's see. Here we go. More demolition slated. Here we go. Where to dine and dance. Let's
Here we
see.
go.
What do we got? Dancing every Saturday night at the Rooster Tail in New Berlin, featuring music by the Driftwoods. Dance. Let's see. Especially country, featuring Shirley Stone at our old favorite, the Bell Hotel in Skenevis, before it was known as the Manahoe Room.
Yeah.
Rainbow Gardens in Davenport, dancing every Saturday from 9:30 to 2 with the Happy Valley Gang, featuring Linda Lee, the vocalist, and Sully from WWVA, the radio station in West Virginia. Evening Inn had dancing. East Hill was performing on Friday from 9 to 1, and Saturday, the Rhythmaires in Colliersville. Let's see, we had Molinary's
still going strong. Yeah.
That was on Deet Street at that point.
Okay.
They had moved it from...
That's right, from South Main.
South Main. Let's see what else was going on. Dancing, lots of dancing. Movies, let's see. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, still the fairest of them all, was playing at the Oneonta Theater for the kids. Let's see. At the Showcase Cinema on Ford Avenue, the Sunshine Boys. I don't know that one.
Yeah, George Burns and Walter Matthau.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Old
All right.
Vaudevillians, yeah.
Okay. Also, Woody Allen and Diane Keaton, Love and Death was playing, and the return of the Pink Panther was coming up to the Showcase Cinema. Can I get a room? Let's see. 3 Days of the Condor was playing at Sydney. Let's see. Saturday at midnight. Let's see. Pink Floyd, the movie, was playing. Okay.
Give me one more.
Hearts of the West at Cooperstown.
Cooperstown still had a theater right on Main Street back in those days. Mark, it's always good to
That
have
was
you in
fun.
there you have it, folks. That's the way it looked, and that's the way it sounded in in February of 1976. I remember a lot of that. Mark, that was fun. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
See you next month.
You betcha. We'll do it again next month. I am Big Chuck. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for tagging along. I appreciate it. Right now, I got to get out of here. It's time for the 10 o'clock news, and I got to hunt me down a meatball with my name on it. You're listening to WCHN in Norwich, New York, WDOS in Oneonta, New York, and WDLA AM in Walton, New York. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye, friends.
From ABC News.